All right, it's Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, and I call the meeting of the House Education Policy Committee to order. We do have a majority of members here, a quorum. We'll start with the minutes. Vice Chair Hill, have you had an opportunity to review the minutes?
I have, and I move their approval.
All right. Representative Hill moves the approval of the minutes for Wednesday, January 4th. Any discussion of those first minutes? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. Okay. All right, as our members know, I think that we have a couple overview presentations today, which is to get ourselves again grounded in this field of and policy about education. And we're going to start with our Department of Education, and we are thrilled to have our new commissioner here presenting to us today. So with that, I would like to call then on the first speaker from the Department of Education to proceed to the testifier table. Thank you for being prepared, and welcome to the committee, Commissioner. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Willie Jett. That's for the record. And members of the House and Education Policy Committee. My name is Willie Jett, as I stated, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today to introduce myself as the new Commissioner of Education for the state of Minnesota.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I want to make sure that we're recording properly and especially your testimony. Thank you. Thank you for the pause as we check out our technical difficulties. Okay. And if we don't, if the mics are on, then we're not recording, right? Yeah. So people that are here, members, we are having a little bit of difficulty with the mics and making sure that they're getting recorded properly. So I think a recess is in order for perhaps 5 minutes where we know that we'll get this worked out and you can talk among yourselves. Thanks for your attention and your patience. We're back. I call us to return from recess right now. We do have our technical issue worked out. We know that now we are recording, that we could, the microphones are on, and the public can be hearing us right now. So, Commissioner, please return to your testimony. And again, would you identify yourself for the record?
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Willie Jett, and I'm the Commissioner for Education. So just to resume in terms of where I was at, first I'd like to just tell you a little bit about myself. And I'd like to do that before our team provides you an overview of the great work that we do at the Minnesota Department of Education. So education is at the core of who I am. I come from a family of educators. I was born and raised in Minnesota, and I'm a product of the Osseo schools. After receiving my higher education in Maryland, Illinois, New York, and Pennsylvania, I came back, as many of us do, to be with my family and to answer my calling in education. I taught and coached basketball in several districts, including Anoka Hennepin, Osseo, and Minneapolis. After earning my administrative licensure through the University of Minnesota, I served as an assistant principal in Osseo, principal in Hopkins, assistant superintendent at St. Paul Public Schools, and most recently, as the superintendent of St. Cloud Area School District. And I've done that for the last 9 years. My background, education, and professional experience have all led me to this role, this moment to serve as the Commissioner of Education. I understand the unique challenges facing communities in the Metro and communities in greater Minnesota. I have the perspective of a student, a parent, a teacher, a coach, and administrator. I know firsthand the complexities of diversity in our schools. So I come here today with the perspective of a lifetime of work in education, with the commitment to work with each and every one of you to provide the opportunities for all of our students, regardless of race or zip code, that they deserve to meet their full potential. I am excited to continue work on carrying out Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan's Due North Education Plan. Next slide. It is also important for this committee and its members, many of you new to your role or to your positions, just like me, to understand what the Minnesota Department of Education is and who the people are that work there. First, we're all guided by Minnesota's 10 commitments to equity. Each and every one of these guiding principles for our team members is focused on the most important part of the puzzle, our students, and providing the inputs to give them the best opportunities to achieve to their full potential. Next slide, please. Under Governor Walz's and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan's One Minnesota vision, we are striving to make Minnesota the best state in the country for children to grow up in, regardless of who they are or what their background is. Our MDE employees are dedicated to this. Next slide. Briefly, with roughly 400 staff, the department serves over 840,000 pre-kindergarten through 12th grade students in almost 2,100 schools. We also work in the system with over 58,000 teachers. Our work touches everything from adult-based education, to libraries, to special education, to getting funding out the door. All things you'll hear about from our leadership team. Next slide, please. Now, each student brings a uniqueness with them into the education space. While all of those unique individual characteristics cannot be captured in high-level data, I think it's important to reflect who is showing up in our schools each day for you in some way. Our population is racially and ethnically diverse. Our student population is around 37% of our students are of color or American Indian. 11.6% are Black. 10.5% are Latinx. 6.9% are Asian. 6% identify as 2 or more races. 1.7% are American Indian or Alaska Native, and 0.1% are Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. Nearly 10% are English language learners, and over 15% receive special education services, and more than 30% are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. Being able to serve each and every one of these students is why we structure our supports and services the way that we do. Next slide, please. The services and supports that our divisions provide to different sectors of areas of the public education system all have common threads. We consistently partner with and support school districts, charter schools, intermediate districts, service cooperatives, and special education districts. We develop tools and resources for students, educators, administrators, families, and community members. We regularly create and deliver professional development to our educators. And as mentioned, we distribute funding to schools and provide grant opportunities to a range of partners. We also put out in-depth analysis of programs and educational outcomes for educators and decision makers. We also provide accountability, regulatory, and implementing roles across the education statutes and rules. Next slide, please. This is an organizational chart for your convenience. Our leadership team will discuss the work that each of these divisions does. Now, this may seem like a lot, but we believe it will be of great value for the members of this committee to see the breadth of our work and how our dedicated professionals support our students, educators, parents, schools, and communities each and every day. And with that, I am proud to welcome my colleagues, Deputy Commissioner Stephanie Barrage, Assistant Commissioners Bobby Burnham, Stephanie Graff, and Darren Cordy, and Chief Financial Officer Denise Anderson. Madam Chair, unless there's specific questions for me, I would pass the mic to Deputy Commissioner Barrage.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for being with us today. And next, we will turn to Deputy Commissioner Stephanie Barrage. Please identify yourself for the record again and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for the record, my name is Deputy Commissioner Stephanie Barrage. And we are going to tell you who we are and what we do. Next slide. So you will hear from my colleagues today, and I am going to speak first on the Office of American Indian Education, the Office of the Deputy Commissioner, and then the Office of External Relations. And then my colleagues will then speak on the other areas of the Office of Teaching and Learning, Educational Opportunity, Student and Support Services, and the Office of Chief Financial Officer. Next slide, please. So the Office of American Indian Education has 6 staff members who serve the 26,974 American Indian students across our state, as well as their family, teachers, and administrators and superintendents. The last time that we presented here, that amount, the 6 staff, that doubled because we had 3 staff at that point, because we have increased our staffing in the Office of American Indian Education. The mission of the Office of Indian Education works to strengthen and promote positive experiences and educational outcomes for American Indian students statewide. Their vision is for students to reach their full potential with their school communities through meaningful, equitable, and targeted educational experiences that affirms and values their unique cultural identities. We value language, culture, and the significant and complex history of Indigenous people, the input of Minnesota's tribal nations and communities, the perspective of parents and students, the gifts and the unique cultural needs of American Indian students, and the effective and innovative programming options. The office provides multiple resources, guidance, and assistance to districts, charters, to our tribal schools, our American Indian parents, our TNEC, and the Minnesota Department of Education as a whole. I'd like to say that as we, under the American Indian Education Act of 1988, the office directly serves 229 districts in the state with more than 10 American Indian students, but provides support to any district as requested. And I'd like to also note that the districts that we serve, from last year, it was 211 to 229 as this year. Next slide, please. So the next areas that I'm going to discuss will be the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Center, the Public Engagement Division, and HR. Those are the departments that I lead. Next slide. Our work provided through the EDI Center is the foundational for ongoing professional learning to agency staff specialized in professional learning for leadership. We are very unique in that we serve internal to MDE, the Minnesota Department of Education, as well as we service our external partners as well. We lead and manage affirmative action responsibilities, goals, and objectives. We partner with human resources to craft and implement diversity and inclusion initiatives and activities. We provide EDI foundational and ongoing professional learning to districts, schools, charters, and community groups to help operationalize of equity, diversity, and inclusion and anti-racist principles and strategies. We partner with LEAs, community groups, and organizations to create programs and supports that grow racial equity leaders. We identify educational inequities and provide technical support, and we train and offer equity reviews to LEAs and community groups and organizations. We also work through the School Climate Center, and this helps schools and community members develop safe and supportive learning environments to reduce bullying, harassment, and I'm just gonna say other mean-spirited behavior. Established by the Safe and Supportive Minnesota Schools Act, Minnesota's Bullying Prevention and Intervention Law, the center provides resources, training, and technical assistance to schools, students, and families in creating safe and supportive school communities. The center provides these services for the following topics: bullying and harassment, school climate improvement, restorative practices, social and emotional learning, discipline policy, procedures and practices, comprehensive school mental health, school safety, and inclusive school practices. The center has been awarded a $2.9 million school climate transformation grant from the U.S. Department of Education to increase the center's capacity to support Minnesota schools as they implement multi-tiered behavioral framework for improving behavioral outcomes, and improve school climate for students throughout the state. The center was recently awarded a 5-year Project Aware grant supporting mental health services for students statewide and in 3 Minnesota district partners. Next slide. Our Public Engagement Office is the division responsible for facilitating direct outreach and engagement with students and families in the broader community. And we serve our communities to hear their feedback and to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our community. Next slide. And next, the Office of External Relations services the entire agency in communicating to the public. Thank you. Next, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Assistant Commissioner Bobby Brennan.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Assistant Commissioner Bobby Burnham, please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Bobby Burnham, and I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Teaching and Learning. And I'm going to briefly walk through overviews for each of the divisions within the Office of Teaching and Learning. You can see by this slide that the Office of Teaching and Learning includes the Division of Early Learning Services, Academic Standards, Assessment and Instruction, State Library Services and Expanded Learning Opportunities, and our units, our Compass Unit, along with our Minnesota Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Unit, as well as our Literacy Unit. I'll first go into brief detail on Early Learning Services. All of the work within our Division of Early Learning Services, of course, is based on a set of program standards, and those are called the Early Childhood Indicators of Progress. Each of the early learning programs within the division really work to support school leaders, teachers, educators, early childhood teachers, and support staff in the implementation of these core early learning programs. The Health and Developmental Screening Program, the School Readiness and Early Childhood Family Education Program, which are all operated under Community Ed. We have Head Start and Early Head Start. Minnesota is one of a handful of states that actually provides additional state funding to support our Head Start efforts, in addition to the federal funding we receive. And then we have our voluntary pre-K and our School Readiness Plus program that serves 7,164-year-olds. We also have our division or a team within early learning for early childhood special education, which is our Part C work that serves 0 to 3, and our Part B. And then we have our early learning scholarship program, as well as the preschool development grant. We just recently received notification that we have received yet another allocation for the preschool development grant, which we are going to really focus on building a framework for a mixed delivery system, as well as address the early childhood workforce. as well as work on the CCAP and scholarship administration coordination pieces. So, next slide. The Division Academic Standards Instruction and Assessment provides content and expertise and support for K-12 schools throughout Minnesota, and really focusing on identifying and implementing the academic standards. The staff lead a comprehensive and collaborative effort for review, revision, and implementation of the state's academic standards in arts, science, English language arts, social studies, math, and physical education. And as you are aware of, the division also is charged with the administration and design of our statewide assessments. Next slide, please. Also in the Office of Teaching and Learning is the State Library Services. State library programs have oversight and management of the regional library system and the regional library telecommunications aid, the multi-county, multi-type aid, and library construction grant program, as well as various other programs, including the Electronic Library for Minnesota and the Minnesota Braille and Talking Book Library, currently located in Faribault. We also implement or administer the federal library programs and distribute and support federal grant opportunities through our State Library Services team. And also in that team, we have the Out of School Opportunities Unit, which oversees our 21st century federal grant activities, as well as our at-risk after-school meal program and our ARPA summer school and after-school programming as well. This brings us to our work that we do in school improvement. As you know, we are coming out of the pandemic, and over the last 2 years, we have developed in close partnership with the Carey Center at the University of Minnesota. We have enhanced our multi-tiered systems of support work, and in partnership with Carey have developed a Minnesota MTSS model, which is being implemented as part of our school improvement framework and infrastructure for school to really organize their work around the implementation of best practices. And that MTSS work is delivered through our Compass model, which is really our model that we work with schools to through our regional efforts in partnership with our regional centers of excellence and our Minnesota service cooperatives. So the Compass is a school improvement model providing a statewide system of support through which all districts and schools can receive support in improving their educational programming. Really focuses on closing gaps, ending disparities in access, participation, and representation, serving students of color and Indigenous students, as well as students receiving special ed services, English learners, as well as increasing graduation rates and having more students report that they feel safe and welcome in school. Our MTSS model is the state's recommended continuous improvement framework for which districts use to ensure positive social, emotional, behavioral, developmental, and academic outcomes. We are focusing on the areas of literacy, math, and social and emotional learning with both of these units and in our support of schools. Another team in the Office of Teaching and Learning is a fairly new team, our literacy unit, and they have been hard at work over the last 12 months to finalize the Minnesota Bold Literacy Plan, a birth through grade 12 action plan for literacy achievement. I think we can all agree that literacy is an area that needs urgent attention in the state of Minnesota, so we have really been intentional and have built a roadmap for Minnesota to improve literacy outcomes by 2027 through transitioning our support to districts and charters to really support the implementation of foundational, evidence-based instructional practices based in the science of reading. So our Compass system and our MTSS system both support those practices in the area of literacy. We are also in conversation with Pelsby around how we can partner and work together with teacher relicensing and teacher prep coursework in the area to ensure that our teacher candidates are coming out of higher ed with this foundational instructional knowledge. In addition to the focus on our literacy plan and the science of reading, the literacy unit also is implementing our federal Striving Readers Comprehensive Literacy Grant. And as you know, that we received $3 million in funds last session to implement LETTERS. LETTERS was named in the legislation, and so therefore we are in the process of training over 2,300 teachers right now in levels 1 and 2 of LETTERS, which is one training program in the science of reading. And then we have our dyslexia specialists, of course, offering support in screening as well as our Read Well legislation and working to provide support to school districts. And with that, Madam Chair, I believe is all of the Office of Teaching and Learning, and I would like to transition to our fellow assistant commissioners to come up and we'll exit. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Burnham.
Somebody gave me a card.
All right, according to my notes, we have Assistant Commissioner Stephanie Graff would be our next presenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Stephanie Graff. I'm an Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Educational Opportunity at the Minnesota Department of Education. And I'll talk a little bit about the work that we do within the Office of Educational Opportunity. There are 4 divisions within this office. The first one is the Student Access and Opportunity Division, led by Dr. Teresa Taylor. The second one is the Career and College Success Division, led by Director Sally Reynolds. The third is the School and Educator Support Division, led by Director Greg Keith. And the fourth is the Data Practices and Analytics Division, led by Dr. Lisa Burton. Next slide, thanks. The Student Access and Opportunity Division really provides leadership around state and federal programs, really focused on really equity-driven funding streams, particularly around our federal title program. So funding streams for students experiencing homelessness, funding streams for our migrant students, funding streams for our English learners across the state, as well as those that are most at risk. We also provide through this division resources for non-public schools, oftentimes referred to under federal law as equitable share. And so making sure that we're supporting our non-public schools across the state in line with federal law. And really, through all of our state and federal programming, making sure that we're focused on compliance with rules and regulations in the federal law as well as state law. Some of the state programs that this division focuses on includes the World's Best Workforce, supports for multilingual learner education under the Learning English for Academic Proficiency and Success Act, the LEAPS Act, supports around world languages and bilingual seals, as well as community engagement as delivered through the LEAPS Act as well. The majority of the division does focus on federal programs. This includes the oversight and implementation and assistance for 8 federal programs, including Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and Title V. Work around the Every Student Succeeds Act, including our data reporting and accountability requirements. Work with the federal stimulus COVID dollars around our ESSER funding and our GEAR funding, particularly within the context of this division, the flow-through dollars that went straight to school districts and our oversight and support for those resources. The Career and College Success Division is really focused on ensuring every learner is prepared for post-high school, so that can include post-secondary, further training, or career. There's sort of three kind of distinct units within this division. The first is focused on career development and technical education. And so starting with career and technical education, oftentimes referred to as CTE, almost all high schools across the state have some form of support for students around career and technical education. We have a team of content specialists within this division that is supporting each of the CTE content areas, including agriculture, food and natural resources, health sciences, business and marketing, industry and trades, and so on, and making sure that we're delivering those supports through training, technical assistance, and networking across the state around our CTE programming. This division also supports work-based learning, including experiential learning, partnerships with industry and business, ways that we're providing apprenticeships and internships, and really hands-on learning opportunities for students to really engage in career development. The division also has a high school initiatives unit, really focused on transition to post-secondary. Within this unit, there's support for and oversight for our alternative programs across the state, dual credit opportunities for students, so opportunities for students to receive credit, college credit as well as high school credit. This could look in a variety of forms, including advanced placement, international baccalaureate, post-secondary enrollment options or PSEO, or concurrent enrollment opportunities for students as well. Online learning programs, and of course there has been a growing interest in engaging in online learning opportunities for students and for families across the state, and the Minnesota Career Inventory or Information Systems, which is an online career exploration system for students, allows them to explore careers, engage in understanding learning styles, receive information resources about opportunities in the military or in post-secondary or in the workforce as well. The third unit in this division is focused on supporting our adult basic education programming across the state. And so we have more than 300 sites across the state providing services around adult basic education, or ABE, serving about 65,000 adult learners per year. The focus here, and half of those adult learners are actually engaged in English learner programs. Oftentimes the focus within ABE programming really is on adult literacy instruction, adult secondary credential options, and thinking about how we are able to provide high school equivalency credentials, whether that be through the GED or through the HiSET, and then just really the connection and pathways into career opportunities through our ABE centers and services across the state as well. The School and Educator Support Division really leads efforts to build capacity and support leaders and teachers. The work of this division is grounded in continuous improvement processes to support student learning, and really also within this division supports to make sure that we have the very best and most diverse educator workforce that we possibly can across the state. Much of what I'm going to talk about here within this division is explicitly connected to the Compass School Improvement Framework and statewide system of support that Assistant Commissioner Bobby Burnham just spoke to as well. So there's work around school improvement and thinking about the supports for our federally identified schools across the state, those that are identified under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, and that is done in partnership with the division as the school improvement unit, as well as the regional centers of excellence. Supports for full-service community schools and thinking about schools as hubs for wraparound services for our students and for our families and our broader communities. Family engagement supports, and much of this is done in partnership with the division that Deputy Commissioner Barrage talked about with public engagement. Supports around English learner programming, and then also the Minnesota Early Indicator Response System, also known as MERS, which is an early warning system and early intervention system for students focused on dropout prevention efforts. The regional centers of excellence are located in 6 regional service cooperatives across the state. This is a really intentional partnership between the Minnesota Department of Education and our regional service cooperatives. Through the regional centers of excellence, we're able to provide direct support to the schools that are identified under, again, ESSA across the state of Minnesota, as well as broader support through some state funding as well, really thinking about school climate efforts, equity efforts in line with the EDI Center that Deputy Barrage talked about, and principal and leadership supports as well. The Educator Effectiveness Unit is, like I said, focused on building the very best, most talented and diverse workforce possible within our schools. A few of the key areas within this unit. First is the QComp system, or the Alternative Teacher Professional Pay System. This has been in place since 2005, providing supports and professional development and training opportunities for our educators across the state. Only some districts are able to participate in the QComp program. However, all districts are required under state law to have teacher and principal development and evaluation systems. And so the unit within this division provides a lot of resources, model frameworks, training, and networking opportunities for our school leaders and school communities across the state. Equitable access to diverse and effective educators. We know that we have a long way to go to make sure that we have a workforce and teachers in front of our students that reflect the diversity of the students across the state of Minnesota. And so there are a variety of efforts to do that work, grow your own, teacher mentorship programs to make sure that we're focusing on the retention of educators, particularly our educators of color and our Indigenous educators across the state. And then a lot of school leader coaching and support, really focused on meaningful, research-based instructional leadership. The last division that I'll speak to is the Data Practices and Analytics division. This division is focused on building consistent capacity for appropriate data usage across the state. We have a small but mighty team that makes up our Data Practices and Analytics division, and they really support both the internal data capacity as well as the external data capacity and use, and really also focused on building data literacy skills so that we're able to really think about how we're using high quality data to answer key questions and drive forward decisions on behalf of students and families and school communities. A few of the areas within this division, first focused on data collections and systems. Some of the key data collection systems that this division oversees is the Disciplinary Incident Reporting System, or DIRS, the Minnesota Common Course Catalog, Statewide Longitudinal Educational Data System, or SLEDS, and the Minnesota Student Survey, to name a few. They also focus on data analysis, like I said, to answer key questions, drive decisions. They respond to internal and external data requests, as well as support the public reporting of data to meet state and federal reporting requirements. So this is on our data center on the Minnesota Department of Education website, and is inclusive of what's commonly known as the Minnesota Report Card. This division also supports data practices and governance. So they oversee the agency-wide structures and processes for data governance to ensure that data are consistent, trustworthy, and used as intended. In partnership with data practices work within our Office of the General Counsel that Assistant Commissioner Darren Cordy will talk about, also making sure that we're really focused on state and federal requirements when it comes to student data privacy and student protection. Lastly, just a project I think of significance within this division is around the technology modernization effort that we have in partnership with Minute, often known as EdFi. And this is really changing the way that student level data are collected, managed, and reported for our school communities across the state, and thinking about integrating data collection systems, not having separate siloed systems, placing less burden on schools, making sure that we have more timely and real-time data that is actionable, as well as transparent public data reporting as a part of this effort. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Assistant Commissioner Darren Cordy.
Thank you. Assistant Commissioner Cordy, please identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. My name is Darren Cordy. I'm an Assistant Commissioner overseeing the Office of Student Support Services at the Minnesota Department of Education. As part of that work, I oversee 5 divisions within the agency, which you can see listed there: our Assistance and Compliance Division, our Nutrition Program Services Division, our Special Education Division, the Charter Center, and the Office of the General Counsel. I'll start with the Assistance and Compliance Division. There are 4 units within this division. The first is our Special Education Program Monitoring Team. This is kind of the front-end assurance of compliance that we work with school districts and charter schools on in Minnesota to ensure that their processes and procedures are in compliance with the Federal Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, as well as state rules and statutes around special education. We do this in order to help create continuous improvement and try and ensure that students are receiving the services that they are entitled to, while at the same time reducing potential conflicts with families when it comes to special education services. The second is the special education fiscal monitoring process. Again, this is a risk-based monitoring system where we work with school districts and charter schools to ensure that their spending of special education dollars is in compliance with state and federal rules and regulations, and that the funding is being spent on allowable uses. And again, as a risk mitigation to ensure that their districts aren't putting themselves in a position where they may need to repay special education costs because they were used for unallowable expenses. The third group is the special education due process and dispute resolution team. This is kind of more of the back end compliance that we do, where there ends up being a dispute between a family, or a family thinks that their child is not receiving the services that they're entitled to under state and federal law. So we offer a number of different services, such as complaints and hearing systems, as well as facilitated IEP team meetings and mediation to help resolve disputes between families and school districts and charter schools. This group also facilitates the State Restrictive Procedures Work Group, which is something that was established under the state's Olmstead Plan with the purpose of reducing the use of restrictive procedures and eliminating the use of seclusion in Minnesota. And lastly, we have the Student Maltreatment Program, which assesses and investigates and makes findings of student maltreatment for alleged physical abuse, neglect, or sexual abuse of students by school staff or bus drivers that occurs in Minnesota public schools and charter schools. Our next team is our Nutrition Program Services Division. Their mission and vision is to ensure that children have access to healthy and nutritious meals and snacks throughout the school day, in childcare, and in summer when school is not in session. This is accomplished through administration of a number of different programs, many of which are funded and overseen by the federal U.S. Department of Agriculture. You have your school nutrition programs, which are your traditional school breakfast and school lunch programs that you probably are all familiar with. These are operated at both public and non-public schools across the state. Meals that are served in those programs have to meet nutritional requirements that are established by USDA under the federal Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. We also have the community nutrition programs, which provide funding for meals and snacks served in adult care centers, child care centers, daycare homes, which is child care that's operated out of somebody's residence or home, at-risk after-school care centers, which are centers that are located in areas of high poverty as designated by USDA, and which provides after-school care along with educational enrichment opportunities. We also provide funding for meals and snacks served in the summer when school is not in session. Under the Summer Food Service Program, all children ages 18 and under are eligible to receive free meals regardless of their income level and without needing to fill out any paperwork. We also have the Food Distribution Program, which is a program under which USDA uses economies of scale and mass purchasing power to procure commodity foods at a lower price for distribution to public and non-public schools that are operating the National School Lunch Program or the Summer Food Service Program. MDE, our role is coordinating the ordering and distribution process of those commodities. And then lastly, we have a couple of milk programs that we administer. The Special Milk Program is a USDA-funded program that provides cash reimbursement for each half pint of milk that is served at low or no cost to families. And then we have a state-specific milk program, which is the Kindergarten Milk Program. It's a state-funded program that provides cash reimbursement of 20 cents per half pint per child served. Next, we have our Special Education Division. This division, I have listed kind of the different programs that are on that slide there, so I won't go through each of them individually, but I will say that the guiding principle of the Special Education Division is to support whole child thinking, recognizing the uniqueness of each child, collaborating with our partners, and promoting and measuring evidence-based outcomes. Types of services that we provide are training, information and resources, policy development, technical assistance to districts as well as other stakeholders through a variety of projects, initiatives, and grants, which you can see listed there. We also help with local planning and service delivery of special education services, program implementation, evaluation, problem solving, and the problem solving centered around positive outcomes for students with disabilities. And also, we help school districts focus on placing students in the least restrictive environment or the most integrated settings, and focus on graduation, secondary transition, and equitable outcomes. We also operate the Charter Center, which you can see provides leadership, training, and support to promote high-quality charter schools and authorizer excellence throughout the state of Minnesota. They also conduct evaluation and approval processes for opening new charter schools, expanding charter schools to new grade levels, or replicating or expanding existing charter schools to new sites. We also manage the Federal Charter Schools Programs Grant, which is currently being funded at $38.5 million. We're in the last of our 5-year plan on that, actually in a no-cost extension to increase the number of high-quality charter schools in the state. And we also partner with our Early Learning Services Division to help charter schools implement high-quality early learning instructional programs. And then last, we have the Office of General Counsel, which is a relatively new office within the Department of Education. This office provides legal advice in-house to the MDE Commissioner, Cabinet, and MDE staff. They also serve as the liaison for the Attorney General's office in terms of any litigation that the agency may be involved in. As Assistant Commissioner Graff mentioned, we work closely with the data practices team to process public data requests that come in to the agency from the public, from the legislature, from the press. And they also administer the administrative rulemaking process, particularly in terms of overseeing compliance with Chapter 14 and working with the Office of Administrative Hearings on those processes. So with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, our CFO, Denise Anderson.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Madam
Chief
Chair.
Financial Officer, please, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. For the record, my name is Denise Anderson, and I serve as the department's Chief Financial Officer. I oversee the divisions of school finance, agency finance. We have a small unit called risk mitigation and internal control, and I'm also the liaison then to our Minute at MDE unit. So the school finance division is, I want to say that I think the most important thing that that division does is process the $10 billion of state aid payments that go out to districts and charter schools and others twice a month. We want to make sure they go out timely, accurate basis. They also provide the data for the November and February forecasts. They do some interim budget update information, and they coordinate MDE's fiscal note process, which you're all familiar with. The division also works with the Department of Revenue in calculating the tax levy limitations that school districts are required to report. They do some reporting on the Minnesota Automated Reporting Student Services Systems, which is the data collection for the schools. We have a small team of people within school finance that does the school audits. They audit a minimum of 25 schools and charter schools on an annual basis, provide technical support to districts. For instance, if they're in a statutory operating debt situation, we'll provide some technical assistance and monitor their finances. And then another key unit in this division is in the school facilities area. They complete approximately 80 review and comments on school construction projects that are over $2 million on an annual basis. And they also review and approve a minimum of 160 charter school lease aid applications. Those applications then provide the funding for the charter school lease. I also oversee the agency finance division. This division works in partnership with all of the program areas that you've heard about today to perform the work of the department. I call it like those back office activities. They do financial reporting, the budgeting, grants management, federal management and reporting, our procurement, contracts, accounts payable, those types of back office activities. And then, as I mentioned, we have a small unit called Risk Mitigation and Internal Control. And in that unit, on an annual basis, we perform a control environment self-assessment of the agency. We do risk assessment planning across the agency, along with facilitating risk matrices with the divisions. And then we also do the continuity of operations planning. So in the event of a pandemic, we have a plan in place to help facilitate, alternate locations for work, or all of the training and exercises that we've been through the past few years. So that's just a quick overview of what the agency finance area does. And then, as I mentioned, I'm the liaison to Minute, and some of our IT priorities for this year are the PEBT program, which is the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer. It's a temporary food benefit program available in Minnesota. We also are looking at replacing our SERVS financial management, which is our grants payment system. So we're working in partnership with Minute and a third-party vendor to develop a more robust and flexible grants management and payment system. And let's see, the American Indian state definition, we're working with Minute and all of the system changes that are needed to update the definition and how that data is collected in the different systems within the Department of Education. Excuse me. Sorry. And then listed on the screen are some of the other infrastructure activities we're looking at. We're updating our firewall and our VPN migration to the state's central VPN system. For a while, MDE was on an individual virtual network, and we're now connected up to the state. So just as a quick overview, those were some of the activities that we're working with Minute on. So, and with that, I think we'll entertain questions.
Well, thank you each for your presentation here. That was a very smooth overview. I do appreciate it, because there's a lot of things that I say, oh, well, we probably passed legislation relating to what you've just talked about, or are considering. It's then to have a face then of someone that would have responsibility for working with us to get things done. So I think we can pause again and see if we have some questions at this point, and I recognize Representative Erdahl, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Deputy Commissioner Barrage.
I'm sorry, we'll play musical chairs again and do questions.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. As a longtime member of the Indian Affairs Council, I have some questions on the curriculum. Is there a separate curriculum dealing with Native students? And if so, how is it taught? How is it integrated with the other students, or how does this work?
And that would be based on each school district as they work with our office around their needs around the curriculum. Remember, schools manage the curriculum, and so our office would be there to support, to make sure that they have the support, that the understanding of the curriculum that they have, or that different support systems would be in place for the school district staff as they're building their curriculum around American Indian education curriculum.
Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Deputy Commissioner. So there is no one curriculum.
Correct.
It's up to each of the local school districts to develop that curriculum.
Correct.
It'd be interesting to see an example at some point. Maybe you could convey that to us.
We can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. And with that, thank you. Thank you, Representative Berdahl. We appreciate the presentation from the Department of Education, and we have another presentation this afternoon from the organization known as PELSB.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. I was going to ask the commissioner what his coaching record was as a basketball coach. But maybe it put him on the spot.
And that can be follow-up for at another date. And as we're getting set up here for our second presentation on our final for the day, this is the Professional Educators Licensing and Standards Board that we'll be hearing from. In case people have ever wondered what PELSB stands for. Sometimes I forget.
I'm so sorry.
Of course, this is the disadvantage of being second, is that you cannot set your computer up ahead of time. You have to do it in front of us, so we understand.
If you'd like, Madam Chair, I can get started as we get this. Oh, perfect. Perfect timing.
right.
Pulled up and ready.
Well, then I would like to recognize Interim Executive Director Elena Bailey. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having us here today. My name is Dr. Elena Bailey. I am the Interim Executive Director of the Professional Licensing and Standards Board, otherwise known as PELSB. And I have here with me today my colleague, Michelle Hirschvat, who is our rulemaking attorney. We're going to try to be brief and share with you some information on PELSB's scope of work, jurisdiction, some recent data we have for you on the teacher workforce, and then finally some information on our rulemaking projects. So I like to start with PELSB's mission and vision. So our mission is ensuring all Minnesota students have high-quality educators in their schools, and our vision is to ensure equitable education practices through high licensure standards, quality educator preparation programs, and stakeholder engagement. PELSB is an 11-member board made up of volunteer members, and that board oversees our agency, which is a small but mighty staff of 21 people currently. That includes the executive director, we have a licensing and operations manager, a director of ed policy, which I'm also currently serving as, and then several staff members dedicated to licensure and renewal, board administration, and then teacher preparation and policy work. The next slide gives you a sense of just how broad our work is with that staff of 21, and that number in the bottom left-hand corner is the number of dedicated staff members we have to each of those kind of buckets of work. So for teacher preparation, we oversee 38 teacher preparation providers in the state. Those include both IHE or higher ed-based programs, including alternative providers as well. And then of those providers, they run nearly 760 programs. So that would be related to each specific licensure area. So program in elementary ed, secondary social studies, things like that. We also oversee licensure and compliance. And last year, we had about 113,000 licensed teachers in the state. We processed about 9,600 new licenses, and then about 4,100 permissions, so that would be out-of-field permissions for educators who already hold a license and want to serve and teach in an area outside of their licensure area, so a math teacher wanting to temporarily teach physics, for example. And then finally, we processed 26,500 renewals, so quite a bit of work for that staff. And then we also do a lot of board work, which is where most of the policy work takes place. So we held 13 meetings last calendar year. That included a special meeting, so we often will schedule those if we have to respond, for example, to rulemaking or things in a timely manner. We also hold a regular board retreat as well. We oversee educator ethics, which includes discipline cases. Thankfully, we only had 63 actions taken last year, which is not a lot given 113,000 licensed educators, so I think that's a good sign for our teachers here. And then rulemaking is quite a large part of our work. So for many of you, you're familiar with this. PELSB was created in 2017 and began January 1st, 2018. And part of the mandate was to take on the work that was formerly held by the Board of Teaching, and then part of what used to be the department, licensing department at the Department of Education. So the mandate we were given was to rewrite the licensure rules and teacher preparation rules as a part of our new agency work. That is led by one faithful staff member that you can see to my left right here. And then finally, we do administer 2 grants. One is the teacher mentorship grant, and then what used to be the Q grant, or the Collaborative Urban and Greater Minnesota Educators of Color grant, which is much of our work towards teacher mentorship and recruitment efforts. I will turn it to my colleague now to give you a sense of the tiered licensure system, which is not complicated at all.
Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Michelle Hirschvat, and I hope to take us through an overview of the tiered licensure system, provide a snapshot of our licensed teachers in Minnesota, and then end with some recent actions our board has taken in an effort to support our teachers and schools as they continue to navigate issues that our state has faced. And so I will go column by column. So for those who are familiar, I apologize. For those who are not, this is a different licensing scheme than we had years ago. So in 2018, we converted anyone who held that 5-year professional license to a Tier 4 and began processing Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 licenses. In order to obtain a Tier 1 license, you need a bachelor's degree. I'll start with the bachelor's degree-based licenses, and then I will end with a quick summary for our CTE teachers, which has a different set of requirements, so I'll come back to that. Our Tier 1 license does have that bachelor's degree requirement. It is a 1-year license, and it is tied specifically to the teacher, the school district, and the licensure assignment. There are no testing requirements, and there is a piece where the district is responsible for attesting and affirming that they attempted to hire a teacher who held a Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 4 license. The next license is a Tier 2 license. That is a 2-year license, and it can be renewed 3 times in the same way that the Tier 1 license can be renewed 3 times. It is also tied to a specific teacher, a specific district, and a specific licensure assignment. In this case, many of the pathways to a Tier 2 license does not require the passing of licensure exams, though there is one pathway to a Tier 2 license that does require the passing of licensure exams. We often consider a Tier 2 license to be a license tied to a specific content area knowledge, and so we see folks coming through who have a master's degree in a particular area who then obtain a licensure assignment in that area. So if you have a master's degree in U.S. history, you may then get a Tier 2 license in social studies so that you're able to teach that area that you have that content expertise in. Other ways to obtain a tier license is by having been enrolled in teacher preparation or having completed teacher preparation. In that case, perhaps you are waiting to pass your licensure exams. And then there are a few other pathways which we refer to as choose your own adventure, and we can dive into that when we have more time, or if you have questions, we can always respond to those directly. Our Tier 3 license is a professional license. It is held just by the teacher. It can be used anywhere throughout the state. The way you obtain that is by completing teacher preparation or licensure via portfolio. You can also have held a professional license in another state and have taught. So there are, again, multiple pathways to obtaining a Tier 3 license. Notably, you do need to pass testing requirements, so content and pedagogy exams. You could renew this indefinitely. Finally, our Tier 4, you are able to obtain after teaching for 3 years on a Tier 3 license. And so you will see at our next slide that most educators in Minnesota hold that Tier 4 license. Again, anyone who held that 5-year professional license had their license converted in 2018 to have that Tier 4. I'll just briefly add that there's a specific licensure pathway for folks in CTE, career and technical education. that removes the bachelor's degree requirement in order to acknowledge their expertise, for example, by having a professional certification in a specific area, by holding an associate's degree, or having 5 years professional experience in a particular career and technical field. So those teachers also have pathways to each of the tiered licenses without holding that bachelor's degree. This next snapshot shows where our current educators have come from to obtain their Tier 3 or Tier 4 license. You'll see that most of our educators completed a Minnesota-based teacher preparation program, though we do have a number of out-of-state teachers coming in. And then finally, just to acknowledge the other category, our data systems are not perfect, so sometimes we are using multiple data systems in order to piece together a data picture. So these are folks we either don't have the current information on, we know they hold a Tier 3 or 4, but don't have that specific background, or came in through some other way that's not listed here. But we continue to work on our data practices so that we're able to have the most useful data for the state policymakers to use when making decisions. Finally, I'll wrap up with 3 actions the board recently took in an effort to remove barriers to licensure. The board recently adopted a policy to allow out-of-state teachers to use their state's licensing exams in order to obtain that Tier 3 license in Minnesota without taking our Minnesota licensure exams. The board also acted to remove the posting requirement. Before a school district is able to hire a teacher using an out-of-field permission, they have to post for 15 days. For the most recent school year, our board removed that in order to expedite the process for schools to place teachers in classrooms. And finally, we've restructured staffing and support for our licensure via portfolio process in an effort to shrink that pathway to licensure.
All right, so even though we've given you quite a bit of information, I'm now going to dive into some data for you. So this data comes from our supply and demand report, which we do biannually. We'll actually be submitting this to you by February 1st. So we're finishing that up now, but I can give you a preview. What you have in front of you here is just a picture of our licensed teachers, so every individual who holds a license, and shows the number total in each racial and ethnic group, as well as the number who hold each tiered license. One thing I will point out, because it'll be relevant to the data on the next page, is that overwhelmingly our teachers hold Tier 4 licenses. So you'll notice that almost 94,000 of our 113,000 teachers hold a Tier 4 license, and then another 14,500 hold a Tier 3. I point this out because when we get to some of the demographic information, you'll know a higher proportion of teachers hold a Tier 1 or Tier 2 license, but you'll see 28% of 1,100 people is a much smaller number than 10% of 40,000 people. So I just want to put that context in there for those of you maybe who didn't have a bachelor's degree in physics like me and love data. But is that the next one? Perfect. So this next slide takes that same information you have, the number of individuals who hold a license, and then shows for each tier what the breakdown is amongst each racial and ethnic group. So of all of our Tier 1 teachers, what percentage of those individuals are American Indian, Alaskan Native, Black, Asian, etc. And that it shows you that across the tiers. Next slide, please. This shows you amongst each particular racial ethnic group what the proportion is across the tiers, so slightly different. So for example, if you want to know amongst all of our American Indian and Alaskan Native teachers, what portion of those individuals hold a Tier 4, Tier 3, Tier 2, Tier 1, this lets you know. So you'll see, again, similar percentages amongst the groups, but you'll see where we have, a higher proportion of Tier 4 amongst certain racial ethnic groups in contrast to others. And then this slide is pulled a different data source, so I do want to acknowledge that. So we collect our data 2 ways. We collect it from licensing, and then we also have the STAR report, which is district data reported to us on an annual basis, and that includes employment and other data. So this is from that employment data and shows you amongst active teachers, meaning they are in a classroom right now, what proportion of them hold a Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, or Tier 4 license. Keep going. Trying to breeze through this. And then this, finally, I have one other data slide, but this one I think tends to draw the most attention. This is amongst our active teachers, a contrast of, in each region and overall, the percentage teachers of color in contrast to or comparison to our students of color. So one thing I will note is the percentage of teachers of color or BIPOC teachers that are licensed is smaller, so that's about 5%. But when you just look at the percentage amongst teachers who are both licensed and working, it's a higher percentage, so about 6.3% working. Still not where we want to be, but slightly better. But you'll see also we have about 40% of our students, the data we just recently got, are students of color, so some work to go. The last thing I'll show you that we hope adds some context here is we have data reported to us from our teacher preparation providers on teacher candidates. And this gives a sense of what the supply is in terms of future or aspiring teachers. So you'll notice the demographic breakdown of teacher candidates here, and that amongst our teacher candidates, about 70% of them are BIPOC. So in terms of what future projections may look like, I think that gives us some helpful insight. I am now going to stop talking and let my colleague finish it up.
Dr. Bailey referenced earlier that in 2017, a number of legislative changes went into place that impacted both teacher licensure as well as teacher preparation. And so the board was tasked with reviewing its licensure rules as well as its teacher preparation rules to ensure that they seamlessly work together in order to get our folks licensed, as well as to support our teacher preparation providers getting candidates into the classroom. So over the past several years, we have adopted numerous changes to rules in the area seen here. We also have a number of licensure, we have a number of rulemaking projects that are ongoing. Most of those now have focused on teacher standards. So during the Minnesota Department of Education's presentation, you heard about academic standards. Those are for children, they're K-12 standards. Our teacher standards, or our licensure standards, are the standards that are implemented as part of teacher preparation programs. So we have a number of, we have 3 active rulemakings that cover a number of licensure topics. And I'll end with just an overview of what our rulemaking process entails. Our board has dedicated board members to be part of a board subcommittee that's responsible for reviewing relevant statutes, perhaps other state licensure rules or teacher preparation rules we research. Our board has dedicated to having this be as public and transparent as possible, so we release drafts early and often. We really hope that our stakeholders consider themselves part of this process and drive our processes, so we have listening sessions, in addition to things that are required by Chapter 14, such as our formal comment periods. Our rulemaking projects do often take 2 or more years. I'll just, acknowledge the elephant in the room. Perhaps this might be because over the past 5 years, I've had 2 children, and as the sole rulemaking specialist, it impacts our timelines. That is part of life, and so I'm very grateful that our staff have been as patient with me, but that is part of our 24-month timelines that have been impacted. We do hope to continue going through each of our licensure standards to ensure that each of our programs in the state have the best minimum standards that are in place for our programs, and that they're able to build off of those and create programs that best serve Minnesota students.
I just want to check in on time. We were asked to share a little bit about substitutes, but I want to be mindful and respectful of the committee's time. So we have a slide, or we can end there for questions, whatever you would.
Maybe we'll take a pause here for questions, and then we'll see how much time we have at the end and complete the presentation, because I know we do want to hear about substitute teaching. And I know that I have 2 questions right now. I saw Representative Weiss first, so I will call on you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention the conversations that we've had about the timing of license applications and the fact that the window begins in July of each year, and the fact that that really dramatically impacts the ability of schools to hire foreign teachers because of the licensure process for them and the timing of the school year and how abysmally slow the federal government is at processing their visa paperwork. So I'm not going to move forward with my independent bill because it all fits together in a complicated puzzle. But I would just really encourage you to consider including that provision, just creating some flexibility in the timing of applications for license as we move forward this session. Thank you.
And I'm going to, Dr. Bailey, will you be responding to this?
Madam Chair, I can. Representative, that's an excellent comment, and I think our board has kind of considered that and thinks a small language change could actually fix that. I intend to actually bring that back to our legislative committee in February for further discussion, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Representative Hill.
Thank you, Chair Pryor. And this question is for Dr. Bailey, and it has to do with the Pellsby Board and the makeup of that board. How many members are on the board, and who's represented on that board as far as roles, et cetera, administrative roles, instructional roles, community roles? That's kind of my wondering.
Madam Chair, may I? Yeah. So that is an excellent question. We have a 11-member board, although currently we have 8 members. You can imagine with teachers and their schedules and the burden right now that it's sometimes tough to fill that. But it is made up of classroom teachers as well as a representative from teacher preparation. We have a school principal, a school superintendent. We have someone who works with the service cooperative. So we have some very specific slots filled in there. We have a charter school representative typically. So typically it tends to be 6 teacher members and then 5 other educators, including related service provider. But currently we have 8 members filled in positions and 2 of those are classroom teachers, so yeah.
Thank you.
One thing perhaps I can add is that our board will likely be advocating for additional teacher members this year, so you may be hearing from us.
All right. Thank you. And I have 2 more members on the list, and I hope that we'll be able to continue on with the presentation after that. Representative Bakeberg.
Thank you. First off, congratulations on the birth of your children. I'm glad that you were able to take time to be a mom. So I appreciate your mission of ensuring high-quality educators, and just for the sake of time, just something maybe for a further conversation. If you could give us an overview of how you work with MDE on the maltreatment complaints, and you said I think there are 63 or 68, and where that goes to. So if you could talk about that. But I would echo Representative Feist's comments about flexibility. I have been on the other side and tried to hire people as a principal, and to be frank, come up to roadblocks often. And that needs to change with our workforce issue. So I would really echo and support her comments about flexibility and creativity and giving us local control because we know our communities. Quite frankly, I don't know Representative Feist's community. She does, and her school board and her administrators know her community well. So I would praise you for the Tier 1 licensure. I have a industrial tech teacher. He's gone now, but I have him teaching 8th grade industrial tech right now because of the tiered licensure, and I would not have a teacher if that licensure model was not in place. So I applaud you for that.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Bakeberg. And I think we'll move on to the last question, if that's all right, because I heard that as a comment.
Yeah.
And appreciate your comment. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be very quick. I just wanted my question is about data disaggregation. A couple years ago, the legislature passed a bill to disaggregate student data. And so I'm wondering if there's parity on the other side, or if you guys have thought about disaggregating the data in your biennium report. It's something we can talk about in committee as well, but just did want to ask about the other side. If we're disaggregating student data, I think it's also important to disaggregate our teacher data.
Dr. Bailey.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I kind of would love some clarity, but maybe time won't permit. So we do disaggregate by racial ethnic group, and we follow the federal categories right now. We know MDE is making some changes, and we're actually looking to them to follow their lead around Minnesota-specific, for example, Indigenous communities, and differentiating that. So we tend to follow the lead so we can pair it as closely as possible for those comparison and contrast. Well, I should not. We don't have dedicated staff to data, but so maybe someone will hate me for saying this, but we would love to have more information and you all have to make recommendations on that, because the better data we have, the better work we can do. So, yeah.
Thank you. So we are a little bit more than 5 minutes. Can we open the topic and revisit it, or is there really too much to discuss to finish off in this meeting?
I think we can finish.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. We just wanted to highlight short call substitute teachers, as we know that this has been a pressing issue for every single school district across the state. So we'll just highlight what we're hearing the 2 issues are that that from a licensure standpoint, that the substitutes don't have the qualifications to obtain that short call substitute license, which requires a bachelor's degree, and that our licensing staff aren't able to prioritize those applications as we're processing other applications. The board has made several changes in an effort to support this, including hiring temporary workers who specifically are working on short call sub applications. Our board has also approved a rulemaking that would allow us to extend the period that a short call teacher can fill a vacancy or replace a teacher from 15 to 20 days. And then finally, our board hopes to bring a proposal forward that would remove the BA requirement for ESPs and paraprofessionals who've been in a school district for over a year, as well as individuals who hold an associate's degree, in an effort to get more folks into the classroom to fill that need. We can talk more about this at another time or answer questions, but we thank you for your time.
There is a question. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Dr. Bailey, and for all your work on this. This is an issue that I've been working on for the last year. And my first term presented several bills about this and talked with, I believe, with Rep. Frazier and also with some other people from MDE. I know Adosh Uni, we have talked about this several times as well. And so the recommendations that you're giving here are things that are good, but what I'm also hearing from the districts is more flexibility on their part to be able to hire without having to have a Pellsby controlled license, but being able to use more kind of a grow your own program type of an idea. I did have language that was kind of a two-track tiered system that we were able to work in, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to look at that. It's already been introduced, and I'm really hoping that we'll be able to come to agreement so that we can provide relief to many of our school districts. But thank you very much for looking at the issues and working towards solving them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Mueller. I think probably that's just something to think about and something to discuss more in the future. Appreciate that. Closing remarks?
Thank you for having us here today. We will be sending along for committee members some additional information we've had requested from the Senate. We imagine you may like. We did a teacher survey on kind of reasons teachers are staying or leaving. We also can provide you with a toolkit. I know some members asked about what we are doing. We worked on this with MDE to help with staffing shortages. So we'll be sending that along. And if you have any other data requests or needs, we would love to help fill those for you. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you for joining us, and I know that we'll have further conversations. Look forward to hearing from you again. Tomorrow, we do have a number of bills, 2 different bills that we'll be hearing on nutrition, K through 12 school breakfast and lunches, and menstrual equity. But I think at this point, we are adjourned.